Rain in this city never brought freshness, only the smell of wet asphalt and a metallic taste of rust on the tongue. Elara sat on the windowsill of her studio, surrounded by glass ghosts, lenses that no longer saw beauty, and mirrors she had draped with black cloth. On her camera screen, the last photograph was frozen. It was technically perfect, golden ratio, correct white balance, no noise, but it was dead. Since her sister Maya vanished 6 months ago, the world for Elara had become flat, like an old cardboard stage set. Colors had bled into a single dirty smear, and every attempt to press the shutter felt like a betrayal. 0 out of 5 stars, Elara, she whispered into the emptiness. You're hollow. Her smartphone on the table vibrated with endless notifications about unpaid bills, but suddenly the screen flared differently. Not a sharp white glow, but a deep, pulsing violet, like a bruise in the sky before a storm. Without a sound, an icon appeared on the screen that she had never seen before. 2 intertwined snakes forming a heart, their fangs bared. SoulSwap. What the hell? Elara reached out. She didn't remember downloading anything like this. The app opened instantly, bypassing all passwords. The interface was disturbingly minimal. No age filters, no distance settings, just 2 fields, your deficit and your surplus. Marketers have completely lost their minds, she snorted, but her fingers moved toward the keyboard on their own. In the your deficit field, she typed the ability to see the essence of things. In the your surplus field, she hesitated. What did she even have left? Pain? Memories? My last happy memory of Maya, she typed, convinced it was just a stupid psychological test or a virus. The screen refreshed. A first card appeared. It wasn't an ordinary guy with a gym mirror selfie. It was a man in a coal-black suit, standing on the roof of a building that hadn't been built yet. His face was sharp, as if carved from granite, and his eyes, they glowed with a soft gold no digital pixel could ever reproduce. Name: Caspian. Rank: top provider. 5.0 stars. Offer: I will return your artistic sight. You will feel the world so sharply that every photograph will burn the viewer's fingers. Price: your last happy memory of your sister. No right to restoration. Elara held her breath. How did the app know about Maya? Cold sweat beaded on her forehead. This had to be a prank, but at the bottom of the screen, in barely visible gray text, it read, by pressing match, you agree to automatic asset withdrawal. The company bears no responsibility for loss of identity or rupture of the space-time continuum. Enjoy the exchange. It's just an app, Elara told herself, just an algorithm that scanned my social media and cash. This can't be real. She wanted to close the tab, but her gaze fell again on her own hands. They were trembling. She wanted so badly to feel something again, anything beyond this dull, aching grief. She wanted to see the world without the gray film of depression. My last happy memory of Maya. It was that day on the ocean shore. They were laughing. Maya's hair smelled of salt and caramel. If she gave it away, she would remember her sister, but she would never remember the warmth. To hell with it, she hissed, and swiped right. The phone screen didn't just light up, it exploded in a flash so bright that every bulb in the room burned out. Elara covered her eyes, feeling something click inside her head, like a camera shutter snapping shut. Then came silence, so absolute she could hear her own pulse. Elara opened her eyes. The studio had changed. It was no longer gray. The shadows on the walls became deep and velvety, moving like living creatures. The old lens on the table suddenly erupted into millions of refracted rays. The world was unbearably, painfully beautiful. And in the corner of the room, perched directly on her draped mirror, sat him, the same man from the screen. Caspian adjusted the cufflink on his sleeve, and his golden eyes looked straight into her soul. Congratulations on a successful transaction, Elara, he said, his voice vibrating in the air like a low cello note. I must warn you, we have a 0 refund policy. I hope the photos will be worth it. He smiled, and there was nothing human in that smile.
Caspian did not dissolve into thin air or turn into a swarm of bats. Instead, he rose from the chair, brushed an invisible speck of dust from his impeccable jacket, and nodded toward the door. "You should step outside, Elara. Looking at the world through the fogged glass of your studio is like trying to taste wine with your nose pinched shut. Besides, our contract has just been activated. Time is running, and the currency has already been withdrawn." Elara felt something hollow out in her chest. She tried to remember that morning by the ocean, the shore, the sun. She could see Maya, see her white dress, but the emotion was gone. It was like staring at an old, faded photocopy of someone else's life. No warmth, no scent of salt, just a file that could no longer be opened. "Did you really do this?" Her voice trembled. "Did you erase my last happy moment?" "I merely relocated it to our system's cloud storage." Caspian stepped closer. He smelled of cold ozone and expensive tobacco, though he didn't smoke. "Don't look at me like I stole your kidney. You pressed match yourself. I'm just a service provider. Come on, I'll buy you a coffee that'll melt your taste buds." They stepped out into the night city, and Elara nearly stumbled. She grabbed his elbow, and through the fabric of his jacket felt an unnatural heat to his skin. The world around them wasn't just bright, it became dimensional. Every street lamp looked like a tiny sun, golden atoms of dust dancing around it. Every puddle on the asphalt turned into a stained glass window, reflecting neon signs with razor-sharp 8K clarity. "This is too much," she whispered, squeezing her eyes shut. "Your previous optics were damaged by grief," Caspian remarked, confidently guiding her through the crowd. Passers-by parted before him without noticing, as if he were an icebreaker cutting through a human sea. "I merely removed the lens cap." They stopped in front of an unremarkable door with no sign. Inside was the bar Inferno, not in the sense of hell, but of refined luxury. There was no music, only a low hum of voices that sounded like whispered prayer. At the tables sat people who looked too perfect, and beings trying very hard to look human. Caspian ordered 2 drinks the color of mercury. "So, how does it work?" Elara finally dared to look him in the eyes. In the bar's half-light, his pupils were vertical, reptilian, but only for a moment. "Is this some kind of demonic pyramid scheme?" "It's evolution, darling." Caspian leaned back, swirling the glass in his hand. "We used to wander crossroads, wait for the full moon, listen to your pompous vows. Boring. Now it's the age of digitalization. You sell your data to corporations for free games. We just took it further. You offer what weighs you down or seems excess, and we convert it into what you crave." "But I gave up happiness," she protested. "You gave up the memory of happiness that was holding you back. Now you're a blank slate with a superpower. Your new photographs, they won't just be beautiful, they'll steal fragments of the souls of those who look at them, and that will make you a goddess in this pitiful art world." He handed her his smartphone. The SoulSwap interface was back, but this time it showed a menu labeled Additional Services. "Sign here." He slid the phone closer. His fingers brushed her hand, and an electric jolt shot through her, raising the hairs on the back of her neck. "Just a formality to unlock night vision. Free trial period." "And what's the catch?" She narrowed her eyes, trying to read the fine print that kept slipping away as if alive. "No catches for those who know how to read." He smiled, and something like azart flickered in his eyes. "Just remember, there are no accidental matches on SoulSwap. I didn't choose you because you were sad. I chose you because your surplus is far greater than you think." Elara hesitated for only a second. The hunger to see this new electric world was stronger than fear. She dragged her finger across the screen, leaving a glowing trail. Caspian sighed with satisfaction. "Excellent. Now get your camera. Tonight we're going somewhere the sun never rises, but where there's more light than at noon." He stood and offered her his hand. The gesture was gentlemanly, but in the way his fingers closed around her palm, there was something of a trap snapping shut.
Under Elara's new vision, the night city transformed into a giant living organism. The streets pulsed with electric blue, and the people hurrying about their business left behind translucent trails of emotion, pink mist of infatuation, gray haze of fatigue, sharp red sparks of irritation. "Shoot," Caspian whispered into her ear. His breath was cold, yet it sent a surge of adrenaline through her. "Don't just capture the light, tear out the core of the moment." Elara raised her camera. The lens, which had once felt like a piece of glass, now felt like an extension of her own eye. She saw an old street musician. Around him swirled a golden aura of pure, hopeless passion for music. She pressed the shutter. Click. The sound was louder than usual, as if something had snapped. But when she looked at the display, her breath caught. The image showed not just an old man, it had captured the very essence of loneliness, so real that the photograph seemed to radiate cold. She began shooting everything: a lover's argument on the corner, a lonely child in a lit window, Caspian himself standing beneath a street lamp like a dark prince amid the chaos. Every frame was a masterpiece. Every frame was painfully alive. "That's enough for today." Caspian gently covered her hand with his, stopping the next shot. "The market doesn't like oversaturation. Publish it, now." With trembling fingers, Elara uploaded the series to her social network. The reaction was instant. The feed exploded. Likes, reposts, comments from famous galleries and critics rained down in a storm. Her phone vibrated so hard her hand went numb. This was the success she had dreamed of for years, a triumph that should have filled the void inside her. But instead of joy, she felt a strange itch at the base of her skull. "Don't you think it's too hot here?" she asked, unbuttoning her coat. Caspian raised an eyebrow ironically. "That's the price of fame, darling. Or perhaps just a side effect of the update. Check SoulSwap." Elara unlocked her phone. Next to the icon of the entwined serpent hearts glowed a red notification badge. A system message appeared. "Transaction report. Genius mode activated. Usage fee for the current hour. Skill spatial orientation withdrawn. Inspiration overage fee. Ability to distinguish the taste of food withdrawn. Thank you for choosing SoulSwap." Elara froze. She lifted her head and realized she had no idea where she was. She had known this intersection her entire life, but now the streets felt like a labyrinth without logic. The names on the signs turned into incomprehensible symbols. "What does this mean?" She stared at Caspian in horror. "What do you mean, taste of food? What orientation?" She grabbed an apple from the nearest street vendor and took a big bite. Nothing, as if she were chewing damp cardboard or paraffin. No sourness, no aroma, just texture. "Oh, the fine print," Caspian sighed with feigned sympathy, though his sparks of satisfaction danced in his golden eyes. "I told you to read carefully. Section 4, paragraph 12, the provider reserves the right to automatically withdraw secondary biological and cognitive functions in the event of intensive use of granted bonuses. Your talent is currently running at 300%. The system needs energy to maintain that level of image quality." "Secondary?" cried Elara. "I can't taste food. I don't know how to get home." "But you're a star." He stepped closer, and his presence again worked like a drug, dulling her fear. "Look at the screen. You're being invited to an exhibition in Paris. They're offering you $1 million contract. Is the taste of an apple really worth that?" Elara looked at her photographs. They were beautiful, the best thing she had ever created. She looked back at Caspian. He was the only point of reference in a world that had just become alien. "You tricked me," she whispered, feeling a tear slide down her cheek. "Was it salty?
She didn't know. She no longer felt salt. "I only gave you what you asked for." He gently wiped the tear away with his thumb. "Now, come on, I'll take you home. For now, I'm your only navigator." He turned and walked into the darkness, knowing she had no other choice but to follow. In her pocket, the app vibrated again, preparing a new update. Morning began with the taste of ash. Elara stood in the kitchen, staring at the expensive coffee machine she had bought with the first fee from selling the Shadows of the City series. She knew the coffee was supposed to be aromatic, with notes of chocolate and nuts, but to her it was just a hot, black liquid, stripped of meaning. She looked out the window. The world beyond the glass was too detailed. She could see every crack in the neighboring building, every flick of a pigeon's wings 100 meters away, and yet she didn't know how to leave her own apartment building without getting lost in 3 trees. "Enough," she hissed. "I'm ending this." She grabbed her smartphone. Her finger trembled over the SoulSwap icon. Long press, and X appeared. Delete the SoulSwap app and all related data? Yes. The screen went dark for a moment, then flared crimson. Uninstallation error. File elara_soul_core.dll is currently used by another process. To remove the application, please return all acquired assets, talent, success, fame, and pay a penalty equal to 100% of life energy. What the? Elara tossed the phone onto the couch as if it were a burning coal. But the phone didn't fall. It hovered in the air at eye level, then slowly dissolved into space. Elara screamed, covering her face with her hands, but the app interface didn't disappear. It was now inside her eyes. Notifications floated directly before her pupils, her popularity status, charts of emotional withdrawals, and a small chat window in the corner of her vision. Caspian. "Did you really try to delete me? That was almost insulting. Almost." "Get out of my head," she shouted into the empty apartment. "I'm not in your head. I'm in the contract," came a calm voice behind her. Caspian stood by her bookshelf, flipping through an album of her old, still gray photographs. Today he wasn't wearing his jacket, just a shirt with the collar undone, which made him strangely human, if not for the perfect stillness of his posture. "These photos, they were sincere," he said without turning around. "There was a lot of pain in them, but they were real. Your new work is pure visual, like a candy filled with cyanide. Beautiful wrapper, emptiness inside. You made them like that. You're taking everything that makes me human." Elara stepped closer, feeling anger push fear aside. "I'm only executing the algorithm." He finally turned to her. "SoulSwap doesn't create anything new. It only redistributes resources. Your talent is currently feeding your ability to taste, to orient yourself, and soon—" He fell silent, studying her face. "Soon it will begin withdrawing deeper settings, such as compassion, anger, love. The system considers them noise that interfere with producing perfect content." Elara took a step forward, standing almost flush against him. She saw her reflection in his golden eyes. There was no app there, no charts, only her own frightened face. "And you?" she asked quietly. "Are you just an algorithm too? Do you feel anything when you take people's souls piece by piece?" Caspian slowly raised his hand. His fingers touched her cheek. It didn't feel like a system notification. It was warmth, real living warmth that broke through her numbness. "Demons are just users on the other side of the interface, Elara. We're slaves to SoulSwap just like you are, only our contracts last an eternity." At that moment, a large red warning filled her field of vision. Warning: unauthorized proximity between provider and client detected. Risk of empathic bonding. Forced emotional optimization begins in 3, 2, 1. Elara felt a sharp pain in her chest, as if a cold metal hand had clenched her heart. She staggered, but Caspian caught her. For a moment, his mask of perfection cracked. Something real, not documented by the contract, flashed in his eyes.
"Don't let them turn off your fear," he said quickly, pulling her close. "As long as you're afraid, you still belong to yourself."
Elara's studio began to dissolve like a watercolor drawing under a downpour. The walls turned into shimmering streams of data, and the floor beneath her feet became transparent, revealing an abyss filled with the whispers of millions of voices. "Where are you taking me?" Elara tightened her grip on Caspian's hand. "To the backend," he replied shortly, "where the app stores what you call trash and what we call fuel." They found themselves in a place that looked like an endless abandoned station, where instead of trains there stood gigantic glass columns. Inside the columns pulsed something bright and trembling. "Are these soul farms?" Elara stepped closer to one of them. "These are surpluses." Caspian ran his hand along the glass. "Look closer. This isn't just energy. This is the ability to breathe deeply after a first kiss. It's that exact moment when you realize grief has finally let go. It's a child's laughter on a Sunday morning. All the things people swiped away for instant success, status, or revenge." Elara saw a familiar flash inside one of the columns. It was the sea, the very same sea where she had been with Maya. She pressed her palm to the cold surface. "That's my memory. It's just standing here like merchandise in a warehouse." The system doesn't destroy data, it monetizes it. Every one of your brilliant shots feeds on a spark from this column. You're literally burning your past to illuminate your present. Suddenly, Caspian pulled her sharply toward him, hiding them behind a massive column. A moderator drifted past, a faceless being dressed in a white coat that resembled a shroud. It held a tablet displaying users' productivity charts. "If they see us together here, you'll get banned," Caspian whispered. His face was very close. In this strange place, he looked less perfect. She noticed a barcode on his neck, pulsing with a dull light. And a ban in SoulSwap means complete deletion from reality. "Why are you showing me this?" Elara felt her fear transform into something else. "You're supposed to want me to spend more." "Because I'm tired of being Employee of the Year," he smiled sadly, and that smile was more real than all his previous words. "Every time you take a step toward success, I feel the last fragments of my own memory of who I was before the contract being withdrawn. We're connected, Elara. Your loss is my profit, but I don't want to earn my bonuses on your disappearance anymore." He pulled out his phone. The screen was cracked and the interface looked like an old command line terminal. "I found a hidden section in the terms of service. It's locked for humans and almost invisible to demons. It's the section on a critical system error." "And what does it say?" Caspian looked into her eyes. For a moment, his golden pupils dilated, darkness flooding the entire iris. "It says that if a user triggers an unpredictable emotional response in a provider, one not accounted for in the algorithm, for example, genuine self-sacrifice, the system enters a self-destruction loop." Elara felt the air around them vibrate. "You're saying that if we break the script," he cut her off, "but the price will be high. One of us must be deleted so the other can become free. It's the last clause in the fine print. The exchange is irreversible." Suddenly, the space around them began to redden. A siren, like a human scream, tore through the silence of the backend. "Warning, confidentiality breach detected. User Elara and provider Caspian are suspected of collusion. Forced isolation will begin in 60 seconds. "We have to go." Caspian grabbed her hand. "I'll send you back to reality now, but remember, your next step will decide which of us remains in this system forever." He shoved her backward into the void, and the last thing she saw before finding herself back in her studio was Caspian standing alone against 3 white moderator figures, his golden eyes blazing with an unrestrained, almost human defiance. Elara collapsed onto the floor of her studio with the sensation of having been thrown from an airplane at full speed. Reality slammed back into her painfully, the smell of dust, the cold draft from the window, and the silence that now felt deafening. Caspian was gone. She pushed herself up, gripping the table. Her vision was still enhanced. She could see the infrared glow of the radiators and microscopic dust particles floating in the air, but it no longer brought wonder, only nausea. "Where are you, Caspian?" she whispered. In response, a system window flickered before her eyes and read, "Provider Caspian has been temporarily suspended from duty due to a critical synchronization error. Your account has been switched to automatic management mode. Next asset deduction, memory of parents' faces, time until transaction, 02:59. "No!" Elara screamed, slamming her fist into the table. "Not that! Anything but that!" She remembered Caspian's words about the hidden section. The backend had taught her that an app wasn't magic, it was structure, and any structure could be broken if you knew where to apply pressure. She closed her eyes and focused on the violet light pulsing in her brain. She wasn't just looking at the interface, she was trying to feel its code. Where settings normally were, she noticed a faint blurred smudge, a glitch. Elara reached for its edge with her mind. The screen in her consciousness shattered into thousands of lines of text. These were the terms of service, but not the kind shown to ordinary mortals. This was the true protocol governing the relationship between the shadow world and the human world. She scrolled section by section, disposal of hope, heart depreciation, and finally found what Caspian had been searching for. Article 666, the Void Paradox Package. In the event that a provider, demon, demonstrates an act of unauthorized empathy, love, toward a user resulting in refusal to collect contractual payment, the system registers data corruption. Consequences: the contract is annulled. All assets, memories, senses are returned to the user. The object of empathy, demon, is subject to immediate deletion, defragmentation, with no right to shell restoration. Elara felt her heart, which the system had already begun to optimize, skip a beat. Caspian hadn't just wanted to save her, he had been preparing his own suicide. He wanted her to fall in love with him so he could reciprocate and, by doing so, destroy himself to free her. "You idiot," she whispered as tears she was no longer supposed to feel streamed down her cheeks. Suddenly, the room trembled. The voices of the moderators were no longer coming from the app, but directly from the air itself. "User 8092, Elara, you have accessed confidential information classified as level 0. This violation will result in the premature termination of your life cycle." At the center of the room, a black hole began to form, a vortex swallowing light and space. From it emerged 3 figures in white burial shrouds. In their hands were digital scythes radiating dead white light. But before them, rising straight from the floor, stood Caspian. His shirt was torn, his face marked by a deep wound from which golden light flowed instead of blood. He was exhausted, but he was smiling. "Elara, swipe left," he shouted. "Reject everything, now. If you terminate the contract under service dissatisfaction, they'll take only me. You'll get your life back." "No!" She rushed toward him, ignoring the moderators. "There's another way, Caspian. I saw the full code. There's a footnote." "There are no footnotes for beings like me," he blocked her path, bracing himself for the strike of the white scythes. "There is." She grabbed his hands, feeling her own body begin to flicker, becoming part of the code itself. If the user causes the provider to fall in love, one of them must be deleted, or the system must be updated. She looked straight into his eyes, the eyes that now held more humanity than the entire city outside. "We're not getting deleted, Caspian. We're crashing the server." The moderators raised their scythes. Time slowed. Elara understood, to save him and herself, she had to do the one thing SoulSwap feared most: act in a way that was absolutely illogical, irrational, and in defiance of any contract. She didn't swipe left. She didn't swipe right. She embraced the demon and pressed the delete account button on her phone, simultaneously initiating the transfer of all her talent, not to the system, but directly to Caspian. The world exploded into white noise.
White noise was not silence. It was the roar of billions of data packets tearing through Elara like red-hot needles. She felt her identity breaking apart into zeros and ones. Transferring her talent to Caspian, not as payment to the system, but as a personal gift, created a logical loop in SoulSwap's code that the algorithm could not digest. The space around them stabilized, transforming into an endless, sterile white hall. Caspian stood opposite her, but now he glowed with such intense gold that it hurt to look at him. Millions of contracts, visions of essence, recognition, all the surplus he had siphoned from others was now concentrated within him, made possible by Elara's gesture. User 8092, Elara, a voice sounded from everywhere at once. It was not a moderator, it was the administrator itself, the core of the system. You have initiated a critical failure. Your action is classified as unauthorized self-sacrifice. This violates the fundamental principle of our service, egoism. A massive golden card appeared before Elara, identical to the one she had seen on her first day. We are offering you a settlement, the Premium Creator Package. We restore your memory of your sister. We preserve your vision. You will become the most famous woman in the history of art. Your life will be perfect until your final breath. And Caspian? Elara whispered, feeling the whiteness of the hall sear her eyes. Provider 01, Caspian, will be deleted as a defective element. His data will be used to create a patch that prevents similar errors in the future. Choose, Elara, fame and memory or nothing. Simply swipe right to accept the terms. Elara looked at Caspian. He stood motionless. All the brilliance and magnitude she had given him made him resemble a perfect statue. He could not speak. The system had locked his voice. But in his eyes she read a plea. Not for salvation. He wanted her to choose herself. You said my gift was egoism. Elara stepped toward Caspian, feeling the white space begin to erode the edges of her own form. But you made an error in your code. My talent was never mine. It was only a way of seeing others. She lifted her camera, which somehow still hung around her neck. It was no longer a digital device. It was an artifact forged from her pain and his light. I won't swipe, she said, staring into the administrator's empty presence. I'll make my own choice. The screen of her phone, suspended in midair, began to flicker wildly. The system was preparing to forcibly delete Caspian. Time dropped to seconds.
Elara, stop! Caspian's voice broke through the system filters, but it sounded as if it were coming from 1,000 kilometers away. You don't understand. If you do this, you'll lose even the right to oblivion. You'll become part of the background noise. You won't remember who you are. She no longer heard his words as language. She heard them as a vibration in the code. The sterile world around them began to crack. In the corners of the hall, black stains appeared, the trash bin where the system discarded everything it deemed unnecessary. You taught me to see the essence, Caspian. Elara raised her camera and aimed the lens straight at him. Demons don't have reflections, right? But you're not just a demon. You're a contract that wanted to become human. What are you doing? He tried to step back, but the golden light around him locked his movements in place. I'm taking the final photograph. I'm violating the highest confidentiality clause. I'm going to photograph something that doesn't exist. Your vulnerability. It was the most difficult shot of her life. She had to focus not on his beauty, not on his power, but on the small barcode on his neck, now pulsing in the rhythm of a human heart. She poured everything into that press of the shutter. The memory of the sea, the taste of coffee she had been deprived of, and that incomprehensible, illogical feeling tearing her chest apart. Click. The world exploded into black and white. The system emitted a deafening 404 error sound. Warning! User has attempted visualization of the provider's core. Omega-level confidentiality breach detected. Initiating global reboot of the SoulSwap system. Elara! Caspian shouted, reaching out to her. Their fingers met at the exact moment reality shattered into pixels. It was not skin touching skin. It was a flash of pure information. She gave him the last thing she had, her presence in this world, her identity. She rewrote his data with her own, replacing his demonic essence with her human fragility. "Live," she whispered as she vanished into the digital abyss. "Now you're real."
Elara woke to the sound of rain drumming against the windowsill. The studio was filled with dull gray morning light. She felt an overwhelming hunger and cold. She sat up, rubbing her eyes. The world around her was ordinary. No golden auras, no trails of emotion. Just old furniture, dusty lenses, and the smell of wet asphalt. She walked up to the mirror. The black cloth fell away. A tired girl with a pale face stared back at her. She tried to remember what had happened. Her sister's death. Yes, Maya. The pain was there, it hadn't gone anywhere, but it was dull, familiar. But there was something else. Someone. Caspian? The name felt like an old clothing brand or a character from a dream. Elara picked up her camera. It was empty. Not a single brilliant shot. All her masterpieces were gone, as if they had never existed. She was no one now, just a girl who couldn't photograph anything better than ordinary passport portraits. She stepped outside, feeling a strange emptiness in the pocket where her phone usually was. She had lost it, or perhaps it had never existed at all. At the street corner, she accidentally bumped into a passerby. He was wearing a simple denim jacket, looked confused, and held a paper map of the city in his hands. "Sorry," he said, and a faint chill ran down Elara's spine at the sound of his voice, though she didn't know why. "I seem to be completely lost in this area. Could you tell me where the nearest gallery is? I'm looking for a job as a photographer." Elara looked at him. He was an ordinary guy. Dark hair, brown eyes, not golden at all, but in his gaze was the same unbearable hunger to see the worlds that she herself once had. "You're a photographer?" she asked, feeling a tear tremble in the corner of her eye without understanding its reason. "I don't know," he smiled awkwardly. "I think I've just started learning. My name is Cass." "Elara," she replied, extending her hand. They walked down the street together, two strangers who had lost everything, yet found reality. But far away from there, in the digital ether where SoulSwap once reigned, an update appeared on millions of smartphones. The icon was no longer a heart with fangs, it was a simple camera lens. And under developer, instead of emptiness, there was only one name, Elara. She did not disappear. She did not become noise. She became the system itself. She sacrificed her life beside him to become a god who safeguards his humanity from the other side of the screen. She created a new world where there were no more contracts, only the possibility of meeting again, owning nothing but one's true name. She watched them through every camera in the city, smiling. The exchange was complete, and this time the fine print said only one thing: love is the only bug we chose to keep.